I know, guys. I know we just went over this, but we're going to go over it again and again and again and again until we destroy the myth of the party switch. So looking at your comments, it seems that you may be aware of the racist history of the Democrat Party. You know, they were pro-slavery, and they fought the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which granted citizenship, civil rights, and voting rights to the newly freed slaves, our new black citizens. They were founding the KKK and writing Jim Crow laws, while the Republicans were sending the first black senators and first black congressmen to Washington. Now, I'm guessing you feel that the pivotal year in the party switch is 1964. And that is because that was the year of the Civil Rights Act. Now, the generally accepted story, the tabloid headline is LBJ was a Democrat. He signed the bill. Therefore, the Democrats supported civil rights. Barry Goldwater, who would become the Republican nominee for president, did not sign the Civil Rights Act. Therefore, Republicans did not support civil rights, and that was the party switch. How about let's dig into the story a little bit and find out what really happened. So the Civil Rights Act was actually a passion project for JFK, who was a legitimate civil rights activist and supporter as president. Unfortunately, he was assassinated, and LBJ, who was actually a raging racist and used racial slurs on the regular, he was also a sexual predator. He used to like to whip it out in the secretarial pool and ask them if they've ever seen anything that big before. Yeah, he was, but he realized this could get him votes. And so he decided, hey, we need to get this passed because we can tie it to JFK and I can say I've done this and, you know, I'll get reelected. Now, Barry Goldwater, who had supported all previous civil rights legislation and supported this bill until Title 2 and 7 were added. And his problem with 2 and 7 is it expanded the control and the influence of the government, allowing them to sue and have mandates and actually manage private businesses. And Barry didn't like that. He said the state should be the one handling this part of it, and I'm not going to support it if 2 and 7 are in there. But 2 and 7 were left. So now we come to the vote. Here's the thing. The Democrats actually filibustered the Civil Rights Act. Yeah, 60 working days it was held up, 75 hours, longest filibuster in American history until it came to a vote. Now, if you look at numbers to numbers, yes, more Democrats voted for it because there were more of them there. But if you look at the percentage of the parties that supported and voted for the Civil Rights Act, the Republicans were far more supportive of it. As a matter of fact, just based on Democrat votes, the Civil Rights Act would have never passed at all. But it did, which is great. So now people feel like, oh, this is where the parties started to switch. But that's not what happened. The reason Republicans started to get elected in the South, and I called out the wrong party on my last video, so I'm going to make my correction here, was actually not the Dixiecrats. It was the Segregationist Party this time. George Wallace ran for president on a segregation platform. And it split the Democratic vote. And because of that, Republicans were actually able to get elected in the South almost for one of the first times in some places, right? So George Wallace ran once. He was out and gone. But Republicans had started to be elected some in the South. However, even if you look at the electoral map for 76, it was still all blue when Carter ran. Now, you can skip ahead to 88, and the reason I'm skipping 80 and 84 is because all of those, the whole country is red because Reagan ran, and he even carried California and New York. So there's no point. But if you look at George Bush, there are still blue and red states in the South. The same with Clinton. And it wasn't up until Bush Jr., and then we had all that stuff with Florida, that actually the Republicans really had the South and have managed to hold on to it. But even during that time when the South was moving toward Republicans, local governments were still heavily controlled by Democrats. That's something that only started to change here in the last 10 to 15 years. So there was no party switch. And to say that the Republicans have taken over the South is to say that the South has become more racist, not less racist. Well, they got rid of the Jim Crow laws. We desegregated the South. You probably don't know the effect of that, because if you were up north, good old Biden was still fighting to keep all the schools segregated up there. He didn't want his kids growing up in a racial jungle. But in the South, we did desegregate and have become less racist. Now, here's my theory as to why the South started voted Republican and has abandoned the Democrat Party. Well, for one thing, the South is still very traditional, right? We're one of the whole East Coast, but the South, one of the oldest parts of the country. We're also in the Bible Belt, right? The church is still important to us. So as the Democratic Party has moved away from traditional values and has become more left for our country, it's become less appealing to Southerners. So that's one reason they started to vote for Republicans. And the rest of the country is okay with the move to the left for the Democrats. And that's fine. But the idea that in 1964, after supporting the Civil Rights Act, Republicans all of a sudden, you know what, we're sick of running the rest of the country. We really need to get a foothold in the South. I bet if we started hating on black citizens, that would work for us. Hey, let's give it, 64 to 2024, and maybe we'll get this thing under control. What? And that the Democrats, all of a sudden, after fighting for over 100 years to oppress black people, went, you know what? Maybe we were wrong about this the whole time. Let's be champions of civil rights. It sounds absurd when you say it out loud. So anyway, no party switch. I hope this helps. And now you know what's going on. If you have any questions, let me know. And thanks, guys, for sitting through this again. Hope you have a great evening.